Just wanted to say a quick hello so you could all see who I was. I'm going to take you through the Content Manager SharePoint integration today and show you how it allows you to manage your documents inside SharePoint with Content Manager. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So
yes, we can, Kylie.
Thank you, Fatima. Content Manager and the SharePoint integration. Now, what I wanted to take you through today was the integration that actually comes with Content Manager, the Content Manager SharePoint integration. And what does it actually do? It allows your users to use SharePoint without having to worry about doing their records management. So they would just use a SharePoint in their normal fashion. And Content Manager, the integration is sitting behind the scenes, casually capturing the documentation. It integrates Content Manager with SharePoint to allow you to meet your records management compliance with your state legislation and standards. And it gives your users flexibility on whether they work with SharePoint or not. Now, over the past 6, 7, 8 months, of course, we've all started to work remotely, and we're using SharePoint a lot more. And this allows the users to continue to work with SharePoint and be records management compliant. Now, with the integration, what you actually get, it's called the CM Governance and Compliance app. The app is actually added into SharePoint as the app catalog. There are many, many configuration options available with this integration. So you can just have, for example, a document library to a Content Manager container mapping, or you can use rules, instructions, and selectors. So if a document meets a valid rule, you can actually tell it to be filed in a specific container in Content Manager. You can add the app to each site as required. So you may develop or create a new team site or a new SharePoint site, and you might decide, no, we don't want integration in that. However, the next one you create, you want the integration in there. So you can add the CM Governance and Compliance app into whichever site you like. There is a default site for the integration. So for example, the Content Type Hub, you can class that as your default site. That is where you would do the majority of the settings and the configuration, and all the other sites the app or the teams the app gets added to will inherit the settings from this default site. So it is very, very useful. You can configure it once and let all other sites inherit those settings. You can also, if you really wanted to, go to the individual sites and configure them differently from the default site. So the integration is very flexible. So sites can be different to the default that you have configured, or you can go down to the document library and change the configuration of that app if you wish. Now, with the Content Manager and SharePoint integration, there are 4 core actions that come with it. You have Manage, Finalize, Relocate, and Archive. Now, these are very important, these actions. Manage. Basically, what a manage does is the document in SharePoint will come under the Content Manager control. The electronic file stays inside the SharePoint document library, and a stub of the metadata is created in Content Manager. And they are linked together, so you can go into Content Manager and actually have a look at the SharePoint URL to find out where that document is located in SharePoint. As I mentioned, the electronic file stays in the SharePoint document library. It does not go to Content Manager when it is managed. This allows for the full collaboration to still take part on that SharePoint document, which is very, very handy. So the manage means the document comes under Content Manager control, but that electronic file stays in SharePoint. Finalize. Now with the Finalize, the SharePoint document in the document library comes under the Content Manager control, and that document becomes final at the same time. So it preserves the state of that SharePoint document with Content Manager. The electronic file does stay inside the SharePoint document library, and once again, a stub of that metadata is created in Content Manager to represent that SharePoint document. The document is finalized. So if you have a look in Content Manager, for those that would use Content Manager, you would see the edit status actually displays finalized. And as I mentioned, the electronic file does remain in the SharePoint document library, still under Content Manager control, but it is now final. Relocate. This is a combination of, it's a manage. And what it actually does is when you do a relocation, what you can do is it will manage the document in Content Manager and transfer that document immediately from the document library straight into Content Manager. So rather than leaving the document inside the SharePoint document library, you can do a relocation. So if you've got documents sitting in your document library that may not have been modified, for example, for the past 6 months, you decide, okay, they're not being used. Let's clean out the document library and we will relocate them into Content Manager. That action can be performed on a document that has already been managed and on a document that's already been finalized. So you can manage your document first, then sometime down the track you can perform the relocate if it's no longer required to stay in SharePoint. Same with the finalize. You can finalize your document and some point down the track, you can actually relocate it into Content Manager. So there is no evidence that the document was in the document library. However, down the track, if it is required to go back into SharePoint, you can actually expose it back into SharePoint from Content Manager. And the last action you have is an archive. This combines the manage option, the finalize, and the relocate option all in one action. So rather than having to do the manage and the finalize first, you can just go straight to an archive. And once again, what it does is comes under Content Manager control. The document immediately becomes read-only, and the document is archived, removed from the SharePoint document library. The electronic file, as within the relocate, is transferred at the time of the relocate, or in this case, the archiving. So the 4 core actions are very important when it comes to the integration. Usually, you just do a manage to begin with. That might happen upon immediately saving the document into your SharePoint document library, or it could be a week later, 15 minutes later, 2 hours later, whatever the organization decides is an appropriate time for the document in the selected document libraries to be managed. Once you've done that, sometime down the track, you might find that, okay, we need to finalize these documents or we need to relocate them because they haven't been used in the past 6 months. You can perform the relocate or you can do the archive. There are many options when it comes to getting your documents to come under the Content Manager control with those 4 core actions. What can the actions be applied to? Well, you can have your list items. You can have your document libraries. You can put it on document sets, your folders, and you can have sites including all the contained content. So what you can do is if you can manage individual documents, you can manage the entire document library, or you can manage the entire site. And those the 4 core actions can be applied once again to the list, the individual items, the entire document library, or the entire site. Now, what are the benefits of using this integration? Well, we've got records management compliance with the standards and legislation using SharePoint. So in a way, it's records management compliant. There's no training required to the end user because they don't even touch the integration. They just use SharePoint to SharePoint. That's all they need to do. Those documents can be automatically captured based on an action. So for example, if you have a SharePoint column and it's the status, it could be final, draft, and you might change that column from draft to a final. That can trigger an action. The integration can be put anywhere inside SharePoint. And as it says there, it works with document libraries. I do have it in Teams. And I have got a working version alternative for OneDrive. It's a bit clever what I've done with OneDrive. You can also, when it comes to using those 4 core actions, you can get the users to do it themselves, but we all know that's never going to happen. So what we can do is we can automatically get it to happen, and it's via lifetime management policies. You set up your lifetime management policy so that at a certain point in time, the actions will actually kick in, and they will happen automatically when the rule has matured. Now, you don't need to apply the lifetime management policies to all the sites or the document libraries. You might have some document libraries that need manual management. So you give the user the opportunity to decide when it is time for them to actually get Content Manager to manage, finalize, relocate, or archive that document. Automatic versus manual. So for example, you might have a lifetime management policy sitting on a document library that says, I want all the documents in here to be managed 7 days after they've been created. So the users save their documents into a document library, and automatically in 7 days' time, the document becomes managed. The user does nothing. The system, the integration does it all for you. Another example you've got there is, as I mentioned before, changing the status field from draft to final or approved. That can also trigger a document to be managed with Content Manager. You might like to finalize all your documents 6 months after they were last date modified. So you can have them managed straight away. Users are working on them, doing whatever they need to do, collaborate on their documents, and once the document hasn't been used for 6 months, you might find the Finalize will actually kick in and make your documents final. That's a bit of a rundown on what the integration can actually do for you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you a demo on how this all comes together. And we'll start off with the SharePoint environment, so the document libraries. Then we'll move into, I can show you some stuff with Teams. And then I'll show you the clever little thing I've actually done with OneDrive. And also with the demo, I'll show you the exposure that you can actually do, which exposes Content Manager documents into the specified or specific document library. In my SharePoint site here, what I want to do is try and show you the integration from an end user point of view, so you can see what the end user sees and what the end user does, which isn't too much, to be honest. So on my SharePoint site here called Archive Management, I'll just pop into my retention and disposal library. And as you can see here, I've already got some documents in there that have been managed, and I like to display the record number column because then it's pretty obvious that the documents have been managed. Also, you can see in my modern view that you can see that we can manage the list. So that's sort of the indicator that the integration is sitting in the SharePoint site, but the end user doesn't have to do anything. So what I can do here is I'll just go grab a document. Our CEO document here looks good. Just drag and drop it in. It'll get uploaded into the document library, and as you can see there, it has been uploaded. Now, I'm not going to do anything with this particular document library, and while I wait for things to happen, so what actually happens is the document gets put in the document library, the user can use it, and depending on how the integration has been configured, the document will either be automatically managed by Content Manager, or the user can do it themselves. And in this case, on this document library, it is actually set to automatically manage itself. So I'll just refresh the screen and we'll see if it's been done yet. No, we'll just have to wait a little bit longer. So one other thing we can do is you can also put your documents into folders. So I'll just go into a couple of folders here. Oh, we've got our COVID-19 information there. I'm just going to upload a document this time. You can drag and drop or upload. It doesn't really matter. We'll create or change a record class today. Once again, that document will get uploaded. And a job runs in the background, just for your information, that will pick up this document and automatically manage it for me. Now that we've refreshed the screen, you can see that the record number has come through, which means it's now managed by Content Manager. And if we have a look at that other one I added in his folders in SharePoint, you can see that one's also been managed as well. So all the end user needs to do is just pop their document into a document library, and if it's been set up to automatically be captured by Content Manager, they don't need to do anything. They just need to add the document to the document library. Now, if they wanted to, they could come along and click on the document itself and actually edit the document. Oh, this one's about health and well-being. That's okay. So I'll just pop a highlight in there, make sure the document saves. There we go. We've saved the changes. And we can go back to the SharePoint document library. The big advantage of using the integration is that electronic file stays in SharePoint. There's no record of that electronic file in Content Manager. It's just a stub. It's just the profile form of the document. And I can prove that just to quickly show you. So I'll have a look at D20-276. Just got some items there. D20-276. It happens if you put the D in front of it. Right there. So as you can see, it's just a stub of the document. Content Manager knows about it. It's been filed in a container, but the electronic file remains in SharePoint. Now, another cool thing, what you can do is, I'll just pop over to my other document library here, is you can set up what's called rules, instructions, and selectors. And this allows you to save your documents into Content Manager or pop them into SharePoint. And the rule will kick in if the document is valid for a rule to be filed into an appropriate container. So rather than just a generic container, that might be how you're using it, you can get it to go into a specific container. Now, I do have an example of a rule here, which you can see on the screen, and this is out of the integration itself, so this is just for your information. The end users don't see this. You can see we have a management rule. It applies to my particular content type. I have an instruction associated with it which tells you what to do with the document, and then I have some conditions down the bottom here. So for example, if I put a document in that has 2020 in the name and has payments in the name, it will actually be valid for that rule, valid for this rule here, and the instruction will actually kick in. And what it's going to do, it's going to be filed in a 2020 payments documentation folder. Now, what this folder is, it's one that I created in Content Manager, and as you can see, there's the record number right there, which is from the selector. This is just an FYI, and it's just another way you can actually use the integration, so you can specify criteria that might be valid in a rule, and if a document meets that criteria, you can tell it to be filed in a particular container in Content Manager, which is very, very handy. So what I'll do is I'll upload another document into this particular document library here. We'll do some 2020 payments for the physiotherapist. It's currently uploading. There it is. Now, this particular document library, you can have some of these libraries set up so they are manual management. So when an end user is ready, they can click the Manage with Content Manager button themselves. So I just wanted to show you how an end user could do this. So they would select a document and go Manage with Content Manager. Window will appear letting you know what information or what rule is going to be applicable for this particular document. You can review the information on here, and if you're happy with it, just click OK. This will generate a job which will automatically be processed by the integration itself. And after a few minutes, the particular document will actually be managed, and it'll be in the folder that has been specified by the rule. If we refresh the screen, you can see that a record number has now been allocated. And if we go over to Content Manager and look for that particular record number, you will see it's actually been put into the correct container as per the rule. So that could be a very useful way to create and file documents for a generic document library. You can use the rules to actually determine where they need to go. Another cool thing you can do is if you have documents in your Content Manager environment and you want them to be available inside a SharePoint document library, you can do what's called an exposure. This would be set up by your system admin, and it is based on a search criteria or a search that you perform in Content Manager to retrieve those records. And once it's been set up in your document library, the documents are available to use. You can edit them. The only thing you need to be careful of is you need to do a formal checkout of the documents when you want to make any edits. Now, in this particular document library, I have some documents that are actually exposed, and I can prove that. This D19/12 is actually a Content Manager document. Now, if I bring up Content Manager, you can see him right there, and the electronic file is already in Content Manager, and it's also in SharePoint. When you do an update to the document in SharePoint, it will automatically update the document and add a new revision in Content Manager. And to do that, all we need to do is just select a document and just do a formal checkout. I have created a specific document library for this, so when the users want to actually edit these documents, they know that this document library A, for example, has been set that it needs a formal checkout to actually edit the documents because the documents are being exposed from Content Manager into SharePoint. So I've checked that document out, and from here I can just click on the document itself. It's got to do with asbestos. I'll just put update document here. Wait for the information to save. And it's saved. I can just close the window. And now that I have finished that, I can just go and I'll refresh the screen. Of course, usually when you are using this as an end user, you're a little bit all over the place, so you don't need to do a refresh because we're waiting for it. Just refresh the screen, select the document, and I can check it back in. Being SharePoint, it will ask you for some comments if you want. I've got major and minor versions configured here, so I'm just going to check it in. Document has been checked in, and now a job will run in the background and will eventually update the document in Content Manager, which is actually pretty cool, and we might come back and check that a little bit later. Another cool thing you can actually do is you can manage items in a list. Now over here on my information management site, I have a software versions list. Now these guys here, all I need to do is I just add a document or an item into my list. We're going to put HRM software. Just copy the name of software and put the document, so it might be information. Software version is 20, for example. It was released early this month. You can select the department. It's going to be HR. And just save it. This is configurable for any organization. A list is available in SharePoint for any organization. Now I have added that list item in there. There's no electronic file attached. A job will run in the background once again, and the document or the list item will actually be managed. It'll just be a stub of the document. So what I might do is we'll go and have a look in Content Manager. We'll just see if it's come through yet. So I'll just do a date registered of today. And there he is right there. There is my HRM software already managed, and that was the one I added to the list. So you can add items to a list and that can actually be managed in Content Manager. Now an advantage of using the list might be for your physical records. It could be a really good place to actually capture your physical records and then Content Manager just look after them. Now the integration is available in Teams. So I have my Teams down the bottom here. And as you can see here, I have my CMSP integration team. And as you can see in the Files tab, I've got 2 documents in there that are managed by Content Manager. I can just upload a document. Grab my coffees one this time. That will get uploaded into Teams. And this guy has been configured that Content Manager will just grab it automatically. And once again, it does take a few minutes to do. While we're waiting for that to happen, I've also done an exposure into this team. Now I've created a document library in SharePoint that relates to this team. And I've actually exposed some documents into it. Now this is what the CM Teams documents is. So you might do this for reference only. So they are actually exposed out of Content Manager itself, and I can prove that by looking up this D20150. Once again, his electronic file is in Content Manager, but as you can see, it also is sitting in Teams. So if you do need to expose into Teams, you can do so. It could be for reference. You will need to add in a little web page into the team as a new tab so the users can actually see those documents. One advantage of having these documents managed by Content Manager, and look at that, my 2020 payments for coffee has been managed automatically. It's got a record number. Is because the electronic file stays inside SharePoint or in Team, you can still do your collaboration on it, which is very, very handy. It's only once you are finished with the document and you do the relocate, and that removes it from SharePoint into Content Manager itself, that's when the collaboration will stop. It's when the electronic file moves. Now you can configure this for any of the teams. Okay. And you can also, I've done some magic with OneDrive. The integration doesn't actually go into OneDrive. It's not made for that. However, with my OneDrive, what I've actually done is I've created a Power Automate flow. So each time I add final into the name of my document in my OneDrive, the flow will kick in. It will automatically get copied or moved into a document library that has been configured with the integration. And then once in that document library, it'll actually get managed. It does take a few minutes for the flow to kick in, but I can try and demonstrate it to you. So here's my OneDrive here. I've got some documents in here. So I'm just going to create a brand new Word document. Let's call it test document. Might be my final test document. There we go. I'm just going to save that into my OneDrive. And I am going to call it final test document. And go save. I can continue working on the document if I wish, but I'm finished with it. So I'm going to close that down. Now I just need to wait for the flow to kick in and move that document into the appropriate document library. But while we wait for that, in my SharePoint document library, under my information management and into my retention and disposal. My retention and disposal document library here, it is in the classic view, and I have done that for a reason. The reason being is if a user does decide they would like to manually relocate their document, they do have the permission to do so. And to do that, it does need to be in the classic view because this is where you can actually view the Content Manager options. So select the document, and under the Files ribbon, you will see Content Manager, and that's actually where you will find all your actions. Now, if I want to relocate this, just select Relocate. It will bring up the management confirmation, but it'll actually tell you it's going to relocate it and where it's going to put it, so it gives you some information, and you click OK. No need to read the screen here. You can just close it, and you can continue on your merry way. In a few minutes, I'm just refreshing the screen, he will actually disappear out of Content Manager, which is pretty cool. So if there is a document library that is set up for manual management, or the option is down the track you decide that the information needs to be manually relocated because it's no longer needed, you can set up lifetime management policies to automatically do this for you. But if you manually wanted to do it, that would be the process you would go through, and just to empty out. There we go, he's gone. And I can prove that if I go into Content Manager and just do a search for that record. There he is. The electronic file is now located inside Content Manager, and it's been removed from SharePoint itself. Remember earlier with that document that we edited in the exposed document library, where we exposed the Content Manager documents into the SharePoint document library that I edited? The job has now run for D19/12, and as we can see, it's got a new version number, and it has updated the document in Content Manager. So if we have a look in Content Manager and do a quick search for that particular document, you can see in the properties, now got revision number 2, but if we click on the Preview tab, you can see that that now matches what we did earlier inside SharePoint. So if I just hover my mouse, we can go in and have a preview of the item in SharePoint and just show you that it is exactly the same. There you go. Quick cleanup and on to the next topic. Something else you can actually do is you can set off a finalize by just updating a field. And to do that, one of my document libraries, my retention and disposal document library, there he is. I have a date declared. It actually says date declared as final. And of course we can't see it there. There he is. Now what you can do is we'll have a look at this D2210. Inside Content Manager, he is managed, he's in a folder, and his edit status is no record has a document attached. Record has no document attached. So what I can do is if I go and edit the properties of this particular record and just add a date in to date declared as final. Which may have been yesterday. We'll just save that information. We'll just wait for it. There we go. Close the information panel. You can now see that it has a date declared as final, and if I jump into Content Manager, it's been finalized. So that is something the end user can actually do, and it will just finalize the document, which is actually pretty cool. Now, the OneDrive, let's go and have a look and see if he has actually worked. Under my information management, I have my OneDrive final documents. In my OneDrive final documents, that document I created earlier, which was the final test document, it has now been moved into the OneDrive document library. It has been removed from my OneDrive because the rule was if it's got final in the name of it, it'll get moved from my OneDrive into my OneDrive final documents document library. That can be called whatever you like, and it will automatically get managed with Content Manager. This library, the record number is not pulling through, but if I go into Content Manager and just do a search for the items that have been registered today, there he is right there. He has been managed. So now the document has been captured. The end users can work in their OneDrive, and with the business rule that if you want to have captured by Content Manager, and the user can still come here and easily grab the document if they wish to use it. It is still available in the document library. They can easily put the name or final, in my case, in the title of that document, and it'll get moved and automatically captured by Content Manager. I do have a rule set up on this document library that 3 months after the document was last modified, it is going to be automatically relocated into Content Manager. So I have assumed that if it hasn't been used in 3 months, it's finished with, it'll get relocated. If the user wants it back again, we can expose it back into the SharePoint document library, which is actually pretty cool. So that is a bit of a rundown on what the integration can do for you. It is highly configurable. It can be configured to create containers, SharePoint folders, and they can become containers in Content Manager. Documents can be filed using rules, instructions, and selectors, but it does take a bit of a time to get to that stage. Once you understand it, how it works, you can work out the best way to configure the integration for you. I hope that was very useful for you. I'm assuming, oh, hang on. There we go. I hope you can see my screen again now because I think I hit the wrong button just before.
Yep, we can see your screen.
Thank you. I hope that demo of the integration was very useful for you. Before we move on, we've got a quick poll question for you. I'm hoping people can see the poll question at the moment. Make sure I give you a couple of minutes there to grab your mouse and click on the poll. Awesome. We do have, I believe we do have a question that has come out of the demo.
Yep, Kylie, we do have a question, which I thought I might call out for everybody for you to answer. So Adelaide has asked, when a document is moved from SharePoint Online to Content Manager, does this also move any previous versions that might exist?
The answer to that question for SharePoint Online, no, it doesn't. At this point in time, it doesn't manage versions. It will only grab the latest version. However, if you have SharePoint on-premise, and yes, it does, it will take all the versions with it.
Okay, awesome. And we do have a number of questions, but because we've gotten so many, we might just respond to everyone via email after the webinar. So if you have asked a question, we don't get to it now, don't worry, we will email you afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you for the question. Oh, this is something exciting coming up. I'll hand over to Luke, who's the marketing manager for McTish, and he'll explain what's on the screen.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kylie. And thanks for that demo. That was super informative. I know I learned a lot, so I'm sure everyone else did. Well, hi, everybody. So I just want to talk to you guys about an exciting virtual event we have coming up, the 2020 Modern Information Management Summit. So this is running on November the 9th and the 10th, and it's completely free for anyone to register. So as part of the event, you gain access to a whole range of speeches and panel discussions with industry leaders and organizations who will be presenting records and information management solutions that they've implemented successfully themselves. And you'll also be able to meet with organizations and industry leaders through a virtual expo. So I'm super excited for this. Micro Focus will be at the event. They're one of our sponsors. They'll be speaking at the event. Microsoft is also a sponsor who'll be speaking in MailX. And of course, we will be there as well. And we definitely plan to have Kylie there to talk more about the Content Manager SharePoint integration. I know there are some developments going on in the background at the moment, and we'll also be able to talk more about some implementations that we've done as well. So the last thing that I will mention is that if you do register within the next 48 hours, you do go in the draw to win a free pair of wireless headphones valued at over $200. So again, there's absolutely no cost to register. You don't even have an obligation to attend. All you have to do is sign up for free, and you can go in the draw to win. We'll also be, having a number of other prizes and giveaways during the actual event. So to register, all you got to do is go to that link, mctish.com.au/events. And Kylie, if you could pull that link up, I believe you already have it opened in your browser. Yep, awesome. And Kylie, if you can just scroll down, you'll see that we do have some speaking sessions there that we've already finalized. So we'll be continuing to add to this. This agenda isn't completely fleshed out yet. So as we finalize our speaking topics with our sponsors and our speakers, we'll keep updating this page and adding them. But at the moment, like I said, it's open for early bird registrants. And if you do register in the next 48 hours, you do go in the draw to win. So yeah, just go to mctish.com.au/events. And yeah, hopefully we get some of you there. And that's pretty much everything. So like I said, anyone that's asked any questions, we will get back to you guys via email after the event. So Kylie, I might hand back to you if you want to mention where attendees can contact you and wrap things up.
Absolutely. Now, before we do go on to the next slide, I'm going to throw another poll up. Hopefully the poll question will appear in a sec. Aha. Give you a minute or so to answer the question. Oh, it'd be awesome if we could share the poll results. Be keen to see what the results are there. Luke, can you go through the poll results for me?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, we can see 92% is Content Manager 9. So yeah, almost 100%, and then 5% for Records Manager 8. Trim 7 is 2%, and then earlier than Trim 7 is 2%. So yeah, the majority of people are on a later version, which is good.
That is awesome. Still got some older versions out there. They're oldies, but they're goodies. They always are. Now, as we said, we do have a lot of questions that have appeared. We might take them offline and we'll answer those questions and send them out to all of you. We'll do that as soon as we can. And there on the screen now are my contact details. So if you do have any questions,
hold on, Kylie. I can't see your screen. I'm not sure if other people can, or if you maybe have to reshare your screen. I'm just seeing the whiteboard at the moment.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Awesome.
My apologies. Technology. Can't live with it. Can't live without it. There are my contact details. Please feel free to flick me an email or email Luke at marketing@mctish.com.au. And if you do have any other questions, we'll be very happy to help you out. Any queries whatsoever about the integration, we'll see what we can do for you. Thank you very much for listening.